A gamer's favorite game is something they hold close to their heart. It can be anything from Minecraft to Doom Eternal, Deep Rock Galactic to Life is Strange, and somehow even something like Destiny 2 or League of Legends. No matter what the game is, it is something that means a lot to that person and has something that makes that game their favorite. Now I want to ask, is your favorite game really your favorite? What I mean by this is, are all the elements of the game your favorite? The gameplay, story, characters, art style, music, controls, and so on. Now, to some people, the answer is yes. Every single thing in the game is their favorite. And that is completely fair. But I believe most people have another game that has something they like a little more. This is what I want to focus on, as I've come to realize that my favorite game isn't my favorite in any of these aspects. And now I want you to think if you may be in a similar situation. Now, starting with the same thing as I always do when I talk about games, their gameplay. Gameplay is generally the most important part of a game. If you cannot get behind the gameplay, then you are most likely not going to enjoy your time playing. Gameplay I don't like is the main reason I have ever dropped a game. I'm fine with a not so great story or characters, wonky controls, and bad graphics, but gameplay I don't like is unbearable. So, logically, you would think that the game that has your favorite gameplay would be your favorite. But in my case and some of my friends' case, that is not true. My favorite game of all time is hands down with 100% certainty Death Stranding. For those of you who don't know what Death Stranding's gameplay looks like, let me show you. This. This is Death Stranding's gameplay. You deliver packages from point A to B to C and back to A and over to D. You spend most of your time walking to these places. But you eventually get vehicles and equipment, and you have to go through enemy and ghost territory. But fundamentally, you are going from one point to another, carrying packages while trying not to damage them. This is my favorite game's gameplay, and I absolutely love it, and could go into hour-long videos talking about why I love it and what makes it so great, but that is not the topic of this video. As much as I love the gameplay, I have to admit, at the end of the day, it isn't my favorite. I would have to say that goes to God of War Ragnarok. Now, let's take a quick look at Ragnarok's gameplay. I love the combat, leveling system, and exploration, and it's all so well made. I love feeling powerful and watching as I get better and defeat harder enemies and bosses with skill. It's just so satisfying and rewarding that it's hard not to love. Now here I am with the phenomenal gameplay of God of War, and yet the slow walking simulator is still my favorite game. So now let's see how Death Stranding holds up when it comes to the game with my favorite story. Generally speaking, if gameplay isn't the best factor in a video game, then I fall back on the story. Now, in this case, I do like Death Stranding's gameplay more than its story, but let's still see how its story holds up. Death Stranding is a Kojima game, and if you know, you know. For those of you who don't know what a Kojima story looks like, imagine the most insane yet simultaneously creative story you can, and you have now created a single plot point in one of his stories. Now, I'm not going to get into what the actual story of Death Stranding is, as it is too long and weird for me to do successfully, and I don't need to. Now, I don't have a specific game story that I can say is my favorite, but I do have games whose stories I like more and consider better than Death Stranding's. First is Life is Strange, which is the closest thing I have to a favorite story. It's written so well and has so many emotional moments, and is one of the few games that has ever gotten me close to crying. Once again, I have the modern God of War games above Death Stranding, as once again, they are just so good. There are actually quite a few games I would put above Death Stranding in terms of story, but that does not mean I dislike the story. In fact, I really like certain parts of it. The big thing here is that even though Death Stranding is beaten out in terms of story to several other games, it's still my favorite game. So, Death Stranding doesn't have my favorite gameplay or story of all time, and that's fine. Let's see how it fares against all the other things I usually like in games. Characters are a big thing for me when it comes to story games, and once again, while I like the characters in Death Stranding, I wouldn't call any of them my favorites. I love Sam, BB, Fragile, Higgs, Cliff, Die Hardman, and Deadman, and yet I think I like them more because they are in Death Stranding rather than their actual characters. There are characters I like more. Max Caulfield, Kratos, the Doomslayer who doesn't even really speak, and the dwarves from Deep Rock Galactic who aren't even in a story game nor have actual arcs. And yet, Death Stranding is still my favorite game. Graphics and art style can make a big impact on your enjoyment as it's what you're going to be looking at while you play the game. Death Stranding is your standard hyper realistic graphics, so it doesn't have too much going for it. Its art style, on the other hand, is futuristic and has some interesting looking objects and characters. That being said, the game is now 5 years old, and while it doesn't look dated, it doesn't look quite as good as the new hyper realistic games that are out. Once again, like God of War Ragnarok. On top of that, I like it when a game has graphics that aren't designed to be hyper realistic. I like the cartoony look of Deep Rock Galactic and Deathloop, and how everything looks painted in Life is Strange. So once again, Death Stranding is beat out in terms of graphics and art style, and yet it is still my favorite game. Similar to graphics, music in a game can have a large impact, as good music that fits the game well and emphasizes certain moments can allow you to have one more thing to love about a game. Now, I absolutely love Death Stranding's music, and it definitely has some of my favorite music, but yet again, there are still other games whose music I like more. Once again, Life is Strange, as it fits the game perfectly and adds so much emotion. Fallout introduced me to old music and I fell in love with it. And I cannot talk about video game music without bringing up the peak that is Plants vs. Zombies Garden Warfare's music. Anyway, the thing here that matters is the fact that this is the first category that Death Stranding beats God of War. Now, once again, I must say that while Death Stranding doesn't have my favorite music in a game, it is still my favorite game. Okay, Okay, so Death Stranding isn't my favorite in any of these categories, so surely it must be in something else, right? How about the world? Good, but no. The atmosphere? Up there, but no. Controls? No. Acting? No. So apparently there is not a single category I can think of where I would say Death Stranding is my favorite, and yet I can continue to say without a doubt in my mind that Death Stranding is my favorite video game of all time. But why? After all, God of War Ragnarok beat it in most of these categories, so logistically, you would think that it should be my favorite. But no. In fact, it's actually at maximum in 5th place, with Death Stranding, Deep Rock Galactic, Life is Strange True Colors, and Life is Strange all beating it. And now I am once again left wondering why Death Stranding is my favorite game. So now let's step back and talk about the thing that makes this game my favorite. As much as there is to love about this game, there is one thing that stands above the rest, and that is the core gameplay concept. Now you might be confused. I already said that Death Stranding's gameplay isn't my favorite, and that is true. But what I mean here is how this game revolves around its gameplay. As I have said, the whole premise is that you're going from one place to another delivering cargo. And in a lot of games, this is already a side objective, delivering thing to place. The difference is other games still put their core mechanics before this. You must fight your way through to deliver thing. You must find clues to deliver thing. But in Death Stranding, every single thing revolves around delivering things. You can only carry so many things, and you must maintain balance so you don't fall over and damage things. You can build and place ladders, ropes, bridges, and zip lines to deal with terrain so you can get to place. All of the equipment you unlock contributes to delivering things to places. You get things that let you travel further for longer, help you carry more, and help you move faster. Even when you get weapons, your focus is on delivering your cargo, not fighting your enemies. Or if you are fighting enemies, it's to get cargo back from them. Everything in this game works to turn what is normally just a side quest or trivial mission into one of, if not the most unique and engaging game I have ever played. This is what makes Death Stranding my favorite game. But it's not just this. Even though it's not my favorite in any one category, they all come together to elevate this game even more. The unique gameplay tied with Kojima's insane story and characters, the controls, the world, the music, and so much more all come together to make something I love. We all have our favorite game, even if it's not our favorite in a specific category. For me, it's not my favorite in nearly everything, and yet how well the game is made to work on one single thing makes it my favorite. For my friends in similar situations, it's things like the ending, the character dialogue, or even just nostalgia. So if you're in a similar situation as me, where you can't list your game in a ton of categories and are left wondering if your favorite game really is your favorite, don't. Your favorite game can be your favorite because of every single thing in it, or even just one tiny thing. At the end of the day, if you know in your heart your game is your favorite, then it is. Thank you for watching my video. This is my first proper video essay, so I would like to know how you think I did, but more importantly, let me know what your favorite video game is and why, especially if you're in my shoes. And once again, thank you for watching.